India's recorded history is one of the oldest and longest in the course of the world. The civilisations that formed on the banks of its mighty rivers have given rise to a rich history, a history that spans time and space. Its unique geography and access to the sea have earned it the moniker of the subcontinent. And to many of its people, it gave a religion, but more than that, a philosophy to a way of life. It created the Hindu. You're listening to Adi, a podcast exploring Hinduism. What is Hinduism? Religion is defined as a belief in a god or an almighty power and the practice of worshipping the same entity. In that respect, Hinduism is a religion in the most simplistic of terms. But so much more. The underlying principles of Hinduism have a focus on science, on learning, on living well, driving focus on being happy and bringing happiness to others. Hindus are tasked to think, to listen, to understand, and not blindly follow a treatise or a doctrine. Hinduism stands at a unique dichotomy that it is at the same time polytheistic and monotheistic. Hindus may choose to be Shaktas, Shaivites, Vaishnavas, Smarthas, depending on their personal preference, family, or identity. And yet they will happily pray to any of the multitude of gods for fulfillment of a physical or a spiritual desire. A devotee of Krishna may remember him during his evening prayers or morning thoughts, but when he starts building a new house or buys a car, he will pray to Ganesh as the destroyer of obstacles and to ensure that everything goes well. Amongst the multitude, there will be those who will place great emphasis on the Vedic Brahmanic defined rituals, and some who may follow the non-Vedic traditions. But one thing that binds them together is an understanding of and a value for the natural law. Fundamentally, we believe in the existence of the karmic wheel, wherein a person's behavior determines his future. And not even the gods and deities are excused from these natural laws of Prakriti, literally nature. That most elementary of natural laws, that which is created must be destroyed, is obeyed inherently. So much so that even the creator of the world will be destroyed for the end of time. In the modern world, science and religion are usually set at odds. But traditionally, Hindus have always had a respect for the scientific and a desire to understand how the world works. It is even said that when the Lord Ganesh was charged by the great sage Vyas to pen the Mahabharata, he was instructed not to write anything down until he understood what was being said. Incidentally, the Mahabharata is word for word agreed to be the world's longest epic poem, 10 times longer than the Iliad and Odyssey combined. Who is a Hindu? Before we dig further into history, let's try and understand the word Hindu. The history of the 20th century determines the current map of the subcontinent. But politics, thankfully, cannot change natural geography. The subcontinent is well protected, with the Himalayan ranges forming a natural border to the north, while the Indus River was a natural border on the west. Let's take a step back in time to around 515 BCE. King Darius I of Persia had sent the Greek explorer Scylax to follow the course of the Indus River. The Indus rises in the north and carries down to what is current-day Pakistan and exits into what is today the Arabian Sea. The Greeks referred to this river as Indus, and the people of the valley and the people of the river as Indoi, literally the people of the Indus River. The people of the valley, however, called the river the Sindhu. The root of the word Sindhu is in Sanskrit. Sanskrit is one of the descendants of the early languages that developed in Central Asia, and thus it and its cousins share commonality with other Indo European languages derived from Proto Indo Iranian languages. Between 850 and 600 BCE, a Proto Iranian sound change in the language changed the sibilant S to an H, turning the word Sindhu to Hindu, and Sindhustan, which means land beyond the Sindhu, to Hindustan. At this point in time, Indoi or Sindhustan was largely a geographic descriptor, referring to the people of the Indus Valley and beyond. Most of the people beyond the river at this time were possibly practicing a variety of religions which share commonality with how Hinduism is codified today. For the Greeks and the Persians and the Sumerians, the Indus became a border beyond which lay rich lands, trade, and a friendly people. Rich trade means rich resources, and India became a target for many a conqueror, some coming for wealth, like the Turkic invasions, some coming for personal achievement, like Alexander, and some eventually even coming to create a home, like the Mughals. Central Asia began experiencing changes in the 9th century BCE with the growth of Islam and the changes in the Islamic Caliphate in the Middle East, and the establishment of the Mamluk Sultanates from Egypt to what is now present-day Afghanistan. Between 1001 and 1025 Common Era, Mahmud of Ghazni started attacking India regularly. Over his many rapacious visits, destroying temples, monuments, and famously amongst them including the cities of Mathura and Somnath. And it is considered that after his attacks, the art of Mathura as a city completely diminished. With the Delhi Sultanate ruling India from 1206 to about 1526, again in the Common Era, a clear distinction was made between the people sharing the Islamic and Turkic heritage of the Sultanate's kings and non-Islamic people of the subcontinent. The term Hindu was used to distinguish between the two. And thus did a people who were identified by a geography were now identified as a religion and a different people. Ironically, though, by this time, India had had a golden period of religion, with Buddhism and Jainism gaining adherents with rulers and their citizenry, starting from about the 6th century BCE. With Sikhism established in the late 15th century Common Era, there were 4 major non-Islamic religions in India. By the 16th century Common Era, with the Islamic rulers from the firmly taking over in India, as well as the European travelers coming in, the term Hindu was applied to all 4 major non-Islamic religions in India, forcibly merging their identity. It was the Portuguese and the other Europeans that used the term Hindu, spelt not as it's commonly today with a U, but with a double O, Hindoo, a spelling that today some might find derogatory, or Hindustani, again with the 2 O's, to describe the people of the continent. European traders and missionaries further identified the people with the religion, giving birth to the term Hinduism. This happened between the 16th and the 17th centuries in the Common Era. The first signs of gods and worship. Hinduism is considerably older than the name given to it by the migrants, traders, and invaders coming from Central Asia and Europe through the centuries. The classical theories on the origins of Hinduism are not consistent, but it is believed that the roots of the faith can be traced back to the Indus Valley civilization circa 4000 to 1900 BCE. The Indus Valley civilization was located in the northwestern region of the Indian subcontinent, consisting of what is now mainly in present-day Pakistan, parts of Rajasthan and Gujarat in India. Amongst its contemporaries, the Harappan civilization was considered one of the most advanced civilizations. Highly urbanized, the principal cities of Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, Dholavira, Kalibangan, and Lothal acted as trade centers for local merchants as well as traders from Mesopotamia and Egypt. Archaeological digs in the Indus Valley revealed not just the signs of this trade, but a highly vibrant civilization, which was excavated in the form of seals, terracotta idols, and figurines, toy animals, and carts. The cities themselves demonstrated signs of planned urbanization and hygiene, with the use of fire-baked bricks, proper sewage, and giant public baths. Despite this emphasis on cities and urban centers, the Harappan civilization had a very high regard for nature. A key example of this is visible in trade seals and pottery excavated from the period, which shows a multitude of animals, identifiable ones including buffalo, elephants, deer, rhinoceros, and tigers, and even some mythical animals like a one-horned unicorn horse hybrid. This regard for animals extended into one of the two key deities witnessed in the period. Pashupatinath, literally translated to Lord of the Animals. Pashupatinath was seen on seals as a figure with a horned crown, 3 faces, surrounded by animals in a very familiar yogic pose. It's very easy to see that Pashupatinath was an earlier personification of gods we can now recognize as Shiva in his form of the eternal yogi. The animals surrounding him are also eminently recognizable as in the form of a rhinoceros, a buffalo, an elephant, as well as a tiger. Even if we consider a modern interpretation of Shiva and we put it aside, Pashupatinath also shares a relationship with the Vedic god Rudra, generally regarded as an earlier form of Shiva. Rudra is associated with asceticism, yoga, and regarded as a lord of animals. And even today, a modern Shiva may be depicted with 3 heads, so the commonality does extend. What is even more intriguing, however, is the discovery of a lingam or a Shiva linga. The ling, or at least a similar form of the ling, was excavated in Kalibangan. For further explanation, a ling is actually a representation, or a phallic representation of Shiva, and it is the most widely known form, identifiable form of Shiva that is worshipped in modern Hinduism today. This particular image, this particular object, this terracotta lingam, was discovered in Kalibangan, and it appears in some as yet unpublished reports of the excavation of Kalibangan from the Archaeological Survey of India. Some of these reports are available in the public domain. This ling is believed to have come in the mature Harappan period, which is towards the end of the civilization in the what you'd be looking at about 1400 CE to 1200 Common Era. Though none of the digs in these areas specifically identify any buildings as temples, there have been a large number of female figurines excavated across the cities, much higher than any of their male counterparts. which puts into aspect that the civilization obviously paid a high importance on the female form. The idea of the mother goddess is associated with the idea of motherhood, fertility, procreation, and the continuity of life. Harappan female figurines have had cultural significance in the sense that these figurines may have been worshipped in households. Versions of the sculpture of the mother goddess have been found with slight variations, such as a pot bellied figurine, which may represent pregnancy and thus the idea of continuity of life. A matronly version of the mother goddess is also found, which has a child in her arms, and it has been found in large numbers in sites in Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, and Banawali. One of the largest female figurines found in Harappa, has a fan-shaped pannier headdress with a black residue in the cups of the panniers. She is heavily ornamented with an elaborate choker and two other necklaces, each with many pendants. This elaborate ornamentation and decoration that has been done on the figurines is one reason that female figurines have been interpreted as deities. Feminine divinity continues to play an extremely important part in modern Hinduism, well reflected in the figures of Durga, Kali, and other goddesses. The physical characteristics of a mother as well as a deity are mentioned in modern Hindu literature, as well as shared commonalities between the figurines in the Indus Valley and, as late as the 11th century Common Era, bronze figures from the Chola kingdom. If we were to compare one of the figurines of the Indus Valley to one of the figurines of Parvati from the Chola kingdom, you will see that the figurines share elaborate headdresses, multiple items of jewelry, an all-knowing smile, and prominent breasts, thus preserving the importance of the female deity and their role in life. From India to the world. Interestingly, the discovery of Harappa did not happen until 1856, when British colonial officers overseeing the construction of a road between Lahore and Karachi found laborers using old fire-baked bricks that they'd found. These bricks were the foundations of Harappa. By the time digs actually began in the 1920s, it was believed that the Indian civilization was actually formed in the Gangetic Plains in central India around 1250 BCE. The river Ganga, its mountain source, and its plains became the land of many of the heroes of the Hindu faith. Ancient Indo-European migrants, traditionally known as the Aryans, cattle herders and tribesmen would have found the highly fertile plains between the Indus, the Ganges, and the Yamuna a viable place to put down roots and thus become farmers. While some believe that the Aryan invaders were part of the reason of the demise of the Indus Valley civilization, because they were invaders, it is now believed that they were not the sole cause of the downfall of the civilization, and that the Indus Valley civilization itself may have collapsed from other natural causes like floods, and the timing of one collapse and the rise of the Aryans may have simply been coincidental. Catastrophic floods and the Aryan invasions may, however, have forced the survivors of the early civilization across the mountain ranges of central India and into the Dravidic plateau. They took their gods and worship styles with them, though. It's intriguing that even today, while the gods that are worshipped through the country are the same, styles of worship change subtly when you move through the different parts of India. As per the 2001 census of India, yes, it's a long while ago, there were 827 million Indians who identified as Hindu. Looking at global data from multiple sources as recent as 2020, there are approximately 1.2 billion Hindus worldwide, thus making it the third largest religion in the world. While many of this spread may be due to modern migration, there is a clearly recorded history of the spread of Hinduism to Southeast Asia. Over the centuries, Hinduism has expanded to Myanmar, Ceylon, Thailand, Java, Cambodia, Malaysia, and the Philippines. Cambodia, through its ancient name of Cambodge, is also mentioned in the epic Mahabharata. There are two specific paths of expansion which led to the growth of a Hindu sphere of influence in these countries. Starting from circa 1st century Common Era, the northern route from the Gangetic Plains moved into Myanmar, and the second route from the southern and eastern part of the country over sea into Java and Sumatra. These kingdoms adopted and adapted specific Hindu texts, theologies, rituals, architectural styles, and forms of social organization that suited their historical and social conditions. To cite an example, Cambodia, where Hinduism became the official state religion of the Khmer kings, led to the construction of the great temple complexes of Angkor, still today one of the biggest Hindu temples in the world. A few centuries later, Buddhism would also follow the same routes in its spread beyond the country of its birth, also adding China, Korea, and Japan. And it would find patronage amongst the same peoples and kingdoms that first adopted Hinduism. The strength of these trade routes is exceptional, as in future centuries they were the routes used for the spread of Christianity and Islam. In search of an identity. The world's great religions take their name from that which they follow. Buddhists and Christians adhere to the teachings of the Shakyamuni Buddha and Jesus Christ respectively. Islam literally means total surrender to the will of God, while Sikhism derives its name from the root word Sikh, literally students of the Gurus. And yet for the Hindu, the name was a moniker that they did not identify with. We were the people of Bharatvarsha, named for an ancient hero and king, Bharat, who had unified many states into one homogeneous empire. He was the ancestor of the demigod heroes of the Mahabharata and had created a golden kingdom where people had no fear and could live their lives in peace. Even today, the official Hindi name of India is Bharat, derived from this ancient name. Historical theories suggest that the Hindu identity really developed, though, in the British colonial era, even though it had started developing in the post-century 8th century Common Era, post the 8th century Common Era, after the Muslim invasions as well as the Hindu-Muslim wars. A sense of Hindu identity and the term Hindu first appears in some texts dated between the 13th and 18th century, written in Sanskrit and Bangla, the two literary languages of the ancient and medieval India. In the 14th and 18th century, Indian poets such as Vidyapati, Kabir, and Eknath used the phrase Hindu Dharma for Hinduism and contrasted it with the term Turka Dharam for Islam. Turka here meaning descendant from Turkey or Turkic. There are changes in classical Hinduism which we will see change due to the impact of the Islamic and European religions in people. In a sense, to defend their faith against these new religions, Hindus modified some of their behaviors, modified their ways of living. Take, for example, clothes. In the Mahabharata, most individuals, male or female, are described simply as having two garments and only needing two garments. One to wrap around the torso and one to simply wrap around the upper body. There was no shame in women not having a completely covered upper body or a head. Carvings in the elaborate temple complexes of Khajuraho have explicit work of barely dressed males and females, and many in a position that might be considered sexual. We were nature worshippers. We understood the laws of nature and the importance of the sexual act, not just for procreation, but also as an expression of love. And we identified with the commonality and the equality of the male and the female because, for us, inherently, both were necessary for the divine order. However, when these beliefs were compared with concepts like original sin, prudity, and the fact that the only achievement of life was to ensure that you got to heaven, Hindus were quite likely compared to unintelligent, paganistic people who were only interested in immoral or the pleasures of life. The easiest defense in any situation like this is to adapt to the beliefs of those mocking you, right? To show that you've made a change. And thus, we adopted the concepts of these faiths, including prudity, segregation of sexes, and to a certain extent, viewing with shame the natural act of sex. In building this defense against the invaders, Hindus codified and enforced the caste system, which hitherto was based on a person's desire to do a type of work and gave him the flexibility to change his caste. But now it was defined by birth, one of the greatest evils that the nation still suffers from. Today's Hindus living in a global environment recognize and value the fact that their religion has developed in the specific context of the Indian subcontinent. When Hindus speak of their religious identity, they emphasize its continuous existence and the fact that it describes a web of customs, obligations, traditions, and ideals that far exceed a Western tendency to think of a religion primarily as a system of beliefs. We have codified it by calling it not a religion, but a way of life. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Adi. For any comments, feedback, or any specific requests, please do write to comments@asabawal.com.